What it do, cuckwads? It's your boy, the Hater reboot up in this mug. It's Friday night and I'm outside in the cold, which must mean one thing, and that is Friday night Smackdown review. Somehow, the Hater is out here watching Smackdown, despite every Smackdown being worse than the previous one. So take a moment to subscribe if you haven't. Throw me a like, throw me a comment. I can't grow without you. As you can see, the Hater's growth is organic and true. You know, the Hater gets views commensurate with his subscriber count. I'm not like one of those channels that has like 100,000 subscribers and their videos get like 2,000 views. The Hater needs to do it the right way, but you can help the Hater. So take a moment to subscribe. You'd be doing your boy a favor. And who knows, maybe you might win the next Hater giveaway. You know what I'm saying? But for now, let's get to Smackdown, tonight's Smackdown, and do it like we do it on this channel, and that is segment by segment. All right, this show, in my opinion, was complete garbage for a number of reasons. But that reason does not include the first segment, which really was pretty great. Rey Mysterio comes out. I knew this would happen as soon as they announced that we're in San Diego. You know, if they didn't have Rey Mysterio come out, that would just be basically like a missed opportunity. So Rey Mysterio is on Raw, but this transfer window thing that they're doing instead of the draft pretty much is just another way of saying that the brand split doesn't matter anymore. That's all they're saying. It's like eventually they might settle on different people being on different shows, but for all intents and purposes, the brand split no longer is a thing, at least in the short term. Rey comes out and he cuts a San Diego promo. Basically, he declares for the Royal Rumble and reminds us that he won the Rumble 19 fucking years ago. That's how amazing Rey Mysterio is. 19 years ago, he won the Rumble and he's still better than 99% of the wrestlers today. Don't make me argue that he's better than 100% of the wrestlers today. Rey Mysterio, absolute GOAT legend. You know, I'm sure some of you caught what I said or what Michael Cole said last Monday, or was it Corey Graves? I don't know, one of those jobbers, maybe Pat McAfee, I believe it was Michael Cole. They said like Pentagon is a close second to Rey Mysterio, which is one of the dumbest things I've heard in my life. Pentagon is like not even top 30 like luchadors of all time. Rey Mysterio is the undisputed number one. Like Rey Mysterio is better than the next 9 luchadors combined. Then there's another 20 guys, and then maybe there's room for Pentagon. This is just absurd. Like, oh, he's just as good. Just as good. As you're going to see, this happens to be the MO of the WWE, lying to you about how good the wrestlers are. And Pentagon is one of the good ones. Nevertheless, Kevin Owens comes out and he cuts a promo basically saying that he wants Rey to win and challenge him for the title because Kevin Owens is under the impression that he's the champion. Rey Mysterio says, "You're retarded. You remind me of Dominic." Kevin Owens says, "Oh, I'm not retarded, blah, 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 blah." They push each other. This sets up a match, basically. I mean, there's another segment afterwards that sets up the match, but you already know what's happening. If there was no match that came out of this, it'd be one of the worst segments of all time, but otherwise it was decent because it was a classic wrestling segment, you know what I mean? Something happens, promos are cut, and this leads to a match later in the night. This is the classic formula for wrestling, you understand me? Anyways, after this match is set up with Nick Aldis, we have Naomi and Bianca. They have like a talk. You know like how Naomi and Bianca every week, they have this like backstage promo, which is like basically the thing that happens before their in-ring segment? Well, they have one this week, and Naomi says there's still no leads on what happened to Jade Cargill. It's been like 2 months. Why would there be a new lead now? You know what I'm saying? Why would there new information be out now? It's really stupid. But this was just there to remind us that Jade Cargill still exists. Because since Jade Cargill has accomplished fucking nothing since her WWE debut, it's easy to forget that she exists. You know, I really hope she wins the Royal Rumble. You know, this is like literally her last chance as far as I'm concerned. But it is what it is. Naomi and Bianca are now going to come out and wrestle Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. Basically, Naomi wins with the Bubba Bomb on Candice LeRae. Nobody cared at all. There was a segment by including Bayley that I skipped. Then there was a Chelsea segment that I ignored. I don't give a flying fuck about any of this. You know what I'm saying? The Bayley segment I skipped by pressing fast forward a little too much. But let's be real, I could have rewinded, but I decided not to because I don't give a flying fuck what Bayley has to say, nor do I give a rat's ass about Chelsea Green. And it wasn't even a Chelsea Green promo because even though I ignored it, I didn't notice that it was basically B-Fab and Piper Niven, who if you were to rank like every wrestler in the WWE right now, the last two spots would be Piper Niven and B-Fab, right? Like, you know, discounting people like Noam Dar from NXT. I'm talking about main roster people. They would be the absolute bottom. You know what I mean? Like, nobody could give a flying fuck if these two girls get released tonight, you know? But this sets up a match between them that we're supposed to care about for some reason. Now we have Jimmy Uso. His new thing is like basically he does what Jey Uso does, which is he cuts a promo before he comes out. He cuts a promo before he comes out, basically taking shots at Carmelo Hayes. Then Carmelo Hayes comes out, reminding us all that Carmelo Hayes used to be this top prospect. More on that later. But basically, Carmelo is like one of the most solidly booked people in the company in terms of like actual consistency. He's 100% right about basically everything he says and he does. You know? People are like persecuting him for no reason. Like he beat Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman's been chasing him for like 3 weeks. You know? Then he comes out and he's like, why is Jey Uso talking all this shit? You know? Which is a good point. Like, what did he do to Jey Uso? Absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? The announcers throughout the match, which is a pretty decent match, it's exactly what you'd expect. Carmelo Hayes looks better than Jimmy Uso. He has a better physique. He's a better in-ring worker. He's better at everything. But because Jimmy Uso is a Samoan, he's going to get the rub here. You know what I mean? Jimmy Uso does absolutely nothing special. He pretty much just does the Samoan moveset. Carmelo Hayes is forced to carry this match. And during the match, the announcers explain to us, to the viewers that is, that Carmelo is basically a draft bust and that he sucks ass now, right? Wade Barrett especially is just basically explaining to us that Carmelo has been dealing with massive jobbers throughout his entire career and now basically he can't keep up with the level of competition on SmackDown. Meaning that the fact that Carmelo Hayes beat Ilya Dragunov and Trick Williams on NXT is completely meaningless because those guys in the hierarchy are far below Jimmy Uso, who has achieved literally nothing as a singles wrestler despite being in the company for like 20 years. That's how shit NXT is presented by Wade Barrett. He basically says like, forget about the fact that Carmelo Hayes was good at one point, right? At one point in the match, Wade Barrett basically says, Carmelo Hayes, he does that little, you know, the little tilt-a-whirl, like bulldog essentially move that he does, which I think should be his finisher, right? And Wade Barrett incorrectly says that this move would be enough to finish matches in the past, but not in the present. First of all, that move has never finished a match. Number two, that's just a silly thing to say. Basically, Wade Barrett is saying NXT is just jobber territory and nothing that happens there, you know what I mean, has any kind of value. Now, Wade Barrett is 100% correct, but you don't say this. You don't bury the entire NXT and Carmelo Hayes, who has been buried consistently. Tessitore explains to us that Carmelo Hayes, I don't know if this is true, I don't remember, but apparently he was a first-round draft pick in the draft last year, which really goes to show how much of a jobber Carmelo Hayes is. And I like Carmelo Hayes, but it is what it is. He's a jobber. Basically, he's about to get his ass beat during the match. Once Jimmy Uso finishes hitting the Samoan moveset, he hits the spear, which is now like a new move that he has as well. He climbs to do the Uso splash, and he's about to hit it, but then Jacob Fatu comes out, and so does Tama Tonga. Tama Tonga pushes Jimmy Uso. They start whooping his ass. Carmelo Hayes gets up and he's like, yeah, you got him. Like, you know, good for you. And then Jacob Fatu just clotheslines the shit out of Carmelo Hayes, proving that he's a jobber. Then LA Knight comes out. First we go to commercial. Never mind. My bad, cucks. We go to commercial, and then Jacob Fatu cuts a promo. Now, the promo was pretty impassioned, so I got to give some props to Jacob Fatu. But the promo was also really stupid, because basically he's saying, like, no matter what, you can't deny that I'm going to get mine, or something. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You lackey, shut your mouth, you know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen now? After Jacob Fatu gets his ass kicked, we're going to hear Tama Tonga cut a promo, and then after he gets his ass kicked, Tonga Loa's going to come cut a promo? Like, is this what happens now? It's just like someone loses, and then their lackey just picks up the ball and cuts a promo, you know? Because that's what happened. LA Knight comes out. He thoroughly starts whooping the ass of Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga, but it's 2-on-1, so they whoop his ass. Then Braun Strowman comes out. Tama Tonga dives outside. Braun Strowman grabs him like a piece of shit and throws him to the side. Then he goes into the ring and he stares down Jacob Fatu, and this is just laughable. It's just laughable that they want to like posit a situation where Jacob Fatu like has any chance in hell against someone like Braun Strowman. It is preposterous. It's stupid, you know? And it reminds me of these like tall tales of, oh, how cool was the toughest guy? Like, fuck out of here. Braun Strowman would have eaten all of those people alive. It's like Braun Strowman's like 1.5 feet taller than Jacob Fatu. He's like 100 pounds bigger than him. He's clearly stronger. Despite being so much bigger, he has like significantly more muscles. It's almost ridiculous. It would be like if in the Attitude Era, you had Kane come in, and then like, I don't know, you had like William Regal go toe-to-toe against Kane, and they made it seem as if there was like any chance, you know? And William Regal's probably bigger than Jacob Fatu. But anyways, it's neither here nor there. It was just stupid. Tessator's like, oh my God, let them go. And it's like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? This is just silly at this point. It's like, it's not even believable in any capacity that you would have any chance. Any chance. Jacob Fatu is also fatter this week than he was last week. And he was fatter last week than he was the week before. So he is trending in the wrong direction, if you ask your boy. After this, he gets dragged out by Tama Tonga because they need to milk this for a couple more weeks. Then we have Motor City Machine Guns coming out with their horrible ass theme music, and they're going to wrestle Los Garza for the crown of the most effeminate team ever. These guys all suck at this point. You know, like, the match in and of itself was okay. I'll talk about it in a second, but I need to take a moment to just point out how ugly Humberto Carrillo is. You know what I mean? Like, normally I wouldn't do this because it is what it is. This is not a beauty contest, but only because Humberto Carrillo was presented as this like pretty boy in the beginning of his career, and he's like the least believable pretty boy in the history of pretty boys, right? Once in a while in entertainment, you get people that are just completely unattractive, but they're presented as being attractive. Some great examples include Maggie Gyllenhaal from Batman, like the one with Heath Ledger. You know what I mean? Like, Maggie Gyllenhaal is like not an attractive woman in the slightest, and I'm supposed to believe that Batman and Harvey Dent are like losing their minds over her. Another one in real life, this one, Usher Raymond, the singer. Usher is like one of the ugliest people of all time, and they present him as this like heartthrob. Are you fucking like, have people lost their minds completely? Like, Usher's like a 2 out of 10. He's like not an, he's an ugly guy. Like, it's not that he's unattractive. He's an ugly guy. And Humberto Carrillo, he's better looking than the people that I just mentioned. But I mean, come on, this guy just looks like a little slob at this point. Like, Garza, the other one, Angel, is like way better looking. And he didn't get like the good looking guy gimmick because he was the heel when they first started out. So I needed to point this out. The match is decent because all 4 of the guys here are talented wrestlers. However, the problem is that this is a Motor City Machine Guns match, which means that we've all seen it 15 years ago. So it's just the same thing again that we saw 15 years ago when it would be them against like, I don't know, Petey Williams and Shark Boy or something. You know what I mean? And now it's them against like Los Garza. Who gives a flying fuck? It's a complete waste of time. You know, we've seen it before. This goes back to what I was saying in the other video where it's like, we're just seeing the same thing that we've seen before again, right? Like, oh, Pentagon, we've seen it for 6 years doing nothing in AEW. Now we're going to see it for 6 more years on Raw doing nothing. You know? Like, you had Lashley, and you gave Lashley to AEW so you could sign Pentagon. Have you lost your minds? Anyways, it is what it is, right? The match ends with Pretty Deadly coming out and creating an interference in favor of Los Garza. But despite this, Los Garza are such jobbers that even with the interference, they're not good enough to win. So Motor City Machine Guns hit the Skull and Bones and pin their jobber asses. Simple as that. Now it's finally time for the match we've all been waiting for. B-Fab versus Piper Niven, right? This could possibly be the most meaningless match of all time, and it's definitely this week's Who Gives a Rat's Ass match of the week. So this match happens. Nobody cares at all. During like the match, the announcers keep saying how good B-Fab is, despite never winning a match. They even say, they're like, oh, she really turned some heads when she lost the triple threat match. No, she didn't. Nobody gave a flying fuck. Piper Niven wins. They talk about how apparently B-Fab is from Medellin, Colombia, and she grew up fighting in the streets. I don't think Colombian women go and fight in the streets, but correct me if I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? Also, I'm sick and tired of every character being someone that fought in the streets, especially when they're like regular ass people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm tired of this, like, you know, every culture pretends they're like the toughest culture. You know, the Samoans are the toughest. The Colombians, they're the toughest. It's like, shut the fuck up, you know what I'm saying? Enough of this bullshit. But anyways, none of this matters because Piper Niven beats that ass. Then Piper Niven decides to beat her ass after the match, but then Michin comes and saves her, further establishing the Michin versus Chelsea Green scenario. It is what it is. You know, at some point during this bullshit, during this kerfuffle, if you will, they show Victoria. Remember Victoria? They show Victoria in the audience, right? And Tessator explains that Victoria is a former two-time women's champion. Have you lost your minds? I was shocked. Victoria is a 2-time women's champion? That's it? Victoria is like an absolute legend. She's like a Hall of Famer for sure one day. And she's a 2-time women's champion. You know, keep that in mind for a second. And think about how cool Victoria was back in the day. Think about how overproduced her shit was. They had her like come out to songs by fucking, remember Tattoo, that Russian group, you know, of those 2 fake lesbians, you know? Then afterwards, she gets a new theme song, and it's by Nicki Minaj. Most people don't know that because most people didn't know who the fuck Nicki Minaj was like 20 years ago. But you know that song that goes like this, you know, I'ma go with my bad self, Yeah, that's Nicki Minaj. Cucks, look it up. So, you know, like she was treated like a real star. You know what I mean? She's had like clear main event type matches. First ever hardcore women's match. You know, she was like featured prominently at WrestleMania. And this is Victoria, you know? And then later tonight, we learned that like Bayley's a 7-time women's champion. And it makes you wonder, it's like in 20 years, who do you think is going to be more important? Like who do you think people are gonna like remember more? Like let's say in 10 years, Victoria and Bayley both come out as surprise entrants in the Rumble. Who do you think people are gonna mark out for more? You know, Victoria probably. Bayley sucks ass, but that's how that went down. Now the match that should be the main event isn't. So Owens comes out, and so does Rey Mysterio. The entrances take a fucking eternity. The match is pretty good, but it's not something that you can get excited about. The primary reason why nobody could get excited about this match is that you know that Kevin Owens is going to win, unfortunately. Even though Rey Mysterio is in his hometown, Kevin Owens is going to have a WWE title match. So, of course, he's going to win. So it's like, why is this match taking so long? The match essentially culminates in one of the worst finishes of all time. Kevin Owens does the stunner, Rey Mysterio sells it. During this match, I couldn't help but think, like, do you think that Kevin Owens will outlast Rey Mysterio in the WWE? I still think that Rey Mysterio has probably a better chance. Like, I could see Rey Mysterio wrestling for another 3 years. You know, I don't see Kevin Owens being around for 3 years. I mean, he might be, but like, you know, like it's like there's a possibility that Rey Mysterio might lap Kevin Owens. It's fucking insane if you think about it. I remember when AJ Styles was like a young guy, Rey Mysterio was already like a legendary veteran. And people were like, oh man, like if only Rey Mysterio was still in his prime, you know what I mean? Maybe he could do a good match with AJ Styles. And AJ Styles is one of my favorites of all time. But he's like 1 foot out the door, Rey Mysterio's still there. You know, how wrong were we, motherfucks? You know what I mean? Rey Mysterio, absolute legend. So basically, Owens hits the stunner, Rey Mysterio kicks out, which was surprising, you know? This really buries the stunner as a finishing move, but it doesn't matter because it's Kevin Owens doing it, so who the fuck cares? Then Rey Mysterio comes back, does a 619. So I'm like, oh, holy shit, this is great. He does a 619, and he goes up to the top turnbuckle to hit a frog splash, presumably. But Kevin Owens just completely no-sells it, pushes the referee by accident, quote-unquote, onto the ropes. Rey Mysterio tumbles down. Owens does the pop-up powerbomb and pins him. He completely no-sold the 619, which is a legendary finishing move. Then they both get up. They shake hands. Owens does another stunner, I believe. I don't know if he does a stunner or if he just kicks him low. Yeah. He just kicks him low and goes for the package pile driver, at which point the cuckster himself, Cucky Rhodes, comes out to stop this from happening, and he does so successfully. I should note that during this event, like one of the overarching points was that Nick Aldis was walking around trying to find Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes and trying to get them both to sign an addendum to the contract. Now, I don't know if anyone here has watched the show Yellowstone. The Hater has tried to watch it many times, but I couldn't get behind it because, quite frankly, I don't understand how men can get their entertainment anymore. I'm starting to watch Yellowstone because it's supposed to be this super masculine type shit, right? And the first episode, it's like some Native American and not Clint Eastwood, fucking the other guy, Kevin Costner, right? And it's like a land dispute. They're like, oh, my land ends over here, yours starts over there. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is some bureaucratic nonsense, you know? And this is exactly how this segment felt. Oh, you got to sign the addendum. This is like the conversation that dentists enjoy. You know, we all have friends that are really into politics. It's the kind of shit that they enjoy. It's the stuff for dorks. You know what I mean? Oh, don't forget to sign the addendum. Have you fucking lost your mind? You think this is compelling TV for a male demographic? No, I want to see people beat each other's asses. I don't want to see people signing contracts, let alone addendums to contracts. Anyways, so finally, Nick Aldis says to Cody Rhodes, you and Kevin Owens are going to sign the contract, and you're going to do so at Saturday Night Main Event, which I guess is, maybe it's tomorrow. I don't fucking know, to be honest, right? At some Saturday, we have Saturday Night Main Event. They're going to sign the contract. The contract signing is going to be moderated by none other than Shawn Michaels, because they're in San Antonio. Who gives a fuck? Shawn Michaels has no connection to either of these guys, so it's completely irrelevant. It's like you could have said it's going to be moderated by none other than Anarchia from TNA, and it would get the same effect, right? Who gives a shit? Yeah. The fact that Shawn Michaels is a legend doesn't mean that he gets to do random ass things for no reason whatsoever. Yet that's where we are right now, cuckwads. Anyways, this leads to another segment. It's DIY and Pretty Deadly. It's the same old shit. Apollo Crews comes out to interfere verbally. He gets his ass beat by Johnny Gargano, which I really enjoyed, only because I'm not liking this version of Apollo Crews, where he just comes out there, he's basically a snitch. You know, I don't like a snitch, nobody does. But then, as he's getting his ass beat by Johnny Gargano, who is in contention for one of the worst wrestlers of all time, I couldn't help but think how overrated Apollo Crews was when he first debuted. For those of you that may be new, when Apollo Crews debuted, he was a big fucking deal, motherfucks. He beat Andrade, who is now like way higher than him on the card. He beat Andrade clean, I believe. He showed up. He debuted at an NXT like pay-per-view, you know, and people would talk about him the same way. It reminds me of how people talk about Obafemi now. They talked about him the same way, right? And it really goes to show how stupid the general wrestling audience is. They have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. They're like, I think his name was like Uga Nation or whatever, you know, before he was Apollo Crews, before he got like one of the worst downgrades in the history of names. He was like, I think Uga Nation. Let's just say he was Uga Nation. I never really heard anyone say it, so I don't know how it's pronounced. But it's either Uga Nation or Uga Nation, right? So basically, they're like, oh, Uga Nation is the next big thing. Uga Nation is like literally, you would hear. I'm not exaggerating. You would hear people be like, oh, Uga Nation is going to be the next Cena. Uga Nation is the next Randy Orton. Uga Nation is the next Lashley. Uga Nation is the next Brock Lesnar. People would say, you know, this is about Apollo Crews, one of the biggest jobbers of all time. So when I say things like, oh, I don't think Obafemi is going to end up anywhere, he's going to have a Baron Corbin level career, people tell me like, nah, man, you're wrong on this one. You're wrong on this one, man. You know, Obafemi is going to be a massive star. Yeah, these are the same people, maybe not the same people, but it's the same sentiment that people had about Apollo Crews. You know, they would have you believe that Apollo Crews was this like world beater. Then he comes out and gets his ass kicked by like Zack Ryder. You know what I mean? Like that's what's gonna happen to Obafemi too. I'm just trying to like get people to be realistic about their heroes. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Karrion Kross. People are like, this guy's a world beater. Karrion Kross is the next Lesnar. Karrion Kross is the next Undertaker, people would say. And I'm like, oh, I think Karrion Kross is gonna be the next Connor from the Ascension. And they're like, no, I don't think he is, bro. You're wrong about this. And here we are, motherfucks. He's worse than Connor. At least Connor was like a one-time NXT tag team champion, you know? Anyways, neither here nor there. It just reminded me of how quickly some people fall. Like Apollo Crews was supposed to be the next big thing. People thought he was like the next world champion, you know? And then he became the next nobody. It's the same thing with Carmelo Hayes, which they established earlier today in the event, you know? They're like, oh, Carmelo Hayes, like, yeah, he was the number one pick, but now he sucks ass, basically, and he better get his shit together before he gets released. And then you have Humberto Carrillo, who was supposed to be like the next Eddie Guerrero, as Michael Cole would tell us, and then he ended up being the next jobber. He ended up being the next S.A. Rios. At least S.A. Rios was a one-time light heavyweight champion. Humberto Carrillo is a one-time nothing. You know what I'm saying? He's won nothing in his career. He's a complete disgusting jobber. And this is now in the category of wrestling where people like Bayley are 7-time champions. So if you adjust correctly, right? If you compare Bayley, let's say, to Victoria, right? Victoria's a 2-time champion, absolute legend. S.A. Rios is a 1-time light heavyweight champion, complete jobber. Then you have Bayley 7 times and Humberto Carrillo, Carmelo Hayes, 0-time anything. Right? So it's like, it really shows how low on the totem pole all these people are. Nevertheless, let's move on to the main event, which was Bayley versus Tiffany Stratton. There's nothing to worry about here. There's nothing to really discuss about here. This was a very uneventful main event. Tiffany Stratton eventually does they called it a cartwheel Alabama slam, but basically she just gets up, does a half cartwheel, right? Just to set up the Alabama slam, picks Bayley up, Alabama slams her, does the prettiest moonsault ever, and pins her. It's as simple as that. Nothing important, nothing special. The show just ends just like that. It doesn't even end with anything fun. So there you have it. That was SmackDown. I think the most important part of this video was the mini rant that I just did, talking about how these jobbers are jobbers, you know, and how like Uha Nation was supposed to be like, you know, the next Brock Lesnar, they had us believe, right? And it turned out he was the next Karrion Kross. Anyways, it is what it is, cuckwads. Take care of yourselves and go fuck your mothers.